If we don't take the juice into account, just even juice, I'm probably going over because I think 11-1 and 12-0 are more likely than 10-2. But with the way that it's juiced at Caesars at the plus 110, I kind of slightly lean towards the under just because it's not completely out of line to think that this team could lose twice. Like I think they'll win the opener against Notre Dame because new coach, new quarterback, not a lot of question marks for me at the receiver spot. And I just don't know what that team's going to look like in the first week of the season. I think if you're getting the Irish, you want to get them early more than later. That Wisconsin game could lose, but it's at home, so not really concerned. But there are the road games against Michigan State, Penn State. You've got Michigan at the end of the year. And there's always, Ohio State still does have kind of a, screw up in them from every once in a while. And defensively, like I'm pretty high on Jim Knowles taking over after what Jim Knowles did at Oklahoma State and Jim Knowles has done. And I think that with the talent that they have, this defense should take a huge leap forward. But that's still assumption. Like we haven't actually seen it yet. So there's still some question marks to where I think the most likely outcome is the over, but with the juice where we're getting it at, I lean slightly under, but I'm not betting either.
I think Tom's analysis there is really spot on. I have them at 11.12. So
Yeah.
like A, that's not really much of a play at any juice. B, at this juice, so minus 140 is, what is it, 58.3 implied?
Yeah.
So that's your break even. So essentially, if you're going to go over 11 at minus 140, you need to have a belief that this is at least 60% likely to happen, right, in order for you to cash. Which, if Ohio State stays perfectly healthy, I think there's a pretty good shot that it does cash. I have them as double-digit favorites in all but 2 games and single-digit favorites in no games. However, I did say if they stay healthy. And if you go back and listen to the summer school, I spoke with the guys from Bucknuts, which is the best Ohio State side out there, and they do a great job. And they said this should be one of the best offensive lines in quite a while at Ohio State if they stay healthy. But the depth there is a little bit thin. So if they don't, you could see this maybe cost them a game or 2, as we saw with Alabama last year. Even though Bama recruits at a crazy high level, if you get some injuries, they could get hurt. The offense should be absolutely sick. I am not all that worried about the receivers they lost, given Marvin Harrison Jr., JSN is back. They have Fleming. They have
Emeka
Ibuka, right, the guy from Seattle. Defensively, I think the back 7 should be pretty solid. The linebacker play won't be worse, I don't think. They're fine at corner, I believe. I do think Jim Knowles will do a good job. I want to see them develop that next level pass rusher. Maybe that's Harrison this year. Maybe it's not. But the price here is prohibitive to me. I'm not going to pay minus 140 to go to the over, which I'm not going to name other books, but other like legal U.S. books, minus 190, 10.5 is something that is much better. Pay the 50 cents if you have to go over if you want to hit this over.
Over. You are not going to lose. You have ultimate push insurance. And it's interesting, Tom, that you mentioned the Ohio State wrinkle, because until last season, one of my compliments of Ryan Day is that in the very small sample size, we hadn't had the Iowa game. We hadn't had that, just totally go and blow it. The Purdue game, the Iowa game, like those moments when Ohio State against a conference opponent, when they were a heavy favorite, would just totally go out there and blow it. The only losses that we had were in the Fiesta Bowl, in the college football playoff to Clemson, and then in the national championship game to Alabama. Then all of a sudden last year, you get the Oregon loss, you get the Michigan loss. So yes, there has been a little bit of a knock here, but I'm willing to say that the head coach who's 34-4 overall and 23-1 in conference play, at least in terms of the, again, very small sample size, doesn't seem to have that same thread that we were able to follow through much of the Urban Meyer era. Again, like you said, Tom, if you're going to play Notre Dame, I like it at the beginning of the season versus at the end of the season. I think the home cooking is incredibly favorable. And while there might be one loss in there, if Penn State's able to get it done in that spot where they've been always competitive at home with the Buckeyes in town, we'll get to Michigan State in a little bit. I don't think that's the spot. I don't see a 10-2 scenario here. So yeah, give me the over for Ohio State, even at 11, because it's going to be a little juicy, but worst case scenario, I think you're getting your money back at the end of the season.
I agree. Like I said, I think 11-1, 12-0 is more likely. but with the juice where it is, and I think 10-2 is it's the mathematical play. My heart says over, but the math says under.
I mean, my heart says this team's going like 12-0, 13-0, and shows up in the college football playoff, and it's it's like the future of the new college football playoff subdivision Super Bowl, where we're going to trot out the team from the Midwest, and they're going to go up against the superstars from the South, and we'll see who ends up getting to go and win a national championship. I mean, it's just the way that last season ended with the loss to Michigan, not being able to play for a Big Ten title, then going out with that thrilling Rose Bowl. It just seems like the table setter for a Buckeyes season that is going to end in the college football playoff.
But the thing that I can't get out of my mind, though, watching or thinking of that team last year, and I know like different coach, some different players, but in the Oregon loss, in the Michigan loss, in that Utah Rose Bowl win, they were getting beat up. Like they were getting out toughed on defense. Like teams were just able to run the ball on them. And there really wasn't a whole lot that they were able to do and stop it. So for me, it's like, I think that's going to improve. I think schematically they'll be better. I think that, just overall, they're going to be a smarter defense. They're going to do different things, confuse teams more, do a better job of all that, keep them off balance. But they also have to be a lot more physical than they've seemed to me the last few years. And I'm not just going to assume that's going to happen. I need to see it before I could go that far.
There has also been a comment that Jim Knowles at his previous stops, it's taken some time for the defenses to take big steps. There's a little bit of a learning curve here. My counter is that those previous stops did not include all the 4 stars and 5 stars that Ohio State has on its roster, who are very much at the talent level that is unlike anywhere that he has had previously. So
like taking over Oklahoma State's defense at the time he took it over was quite a different task than the one he's inheriting in Columbus.
I also want to point out that I think that even if Jim Knowles' defense does not make this so I had him actually as a top 30 defense last year in my opponent adjusted stuff. Like they were not 90th as people want to say, or if they want to say that they're wrong, in my opinion. Even if he only makes them maybe a top 20 type defense out there, I'm okay with that because the style of defense that will be played is one that is aggressive. It's going to get some turnovers. It's going to get some tackles for loss. It's going to get them off the field quickly. It's going to get the ball back often to this offense. Now, sometimes the offense is going to get the ball back because they gave up an explosive play. That's kind of what Knowles defenses do. Last year, I thought Ohio State was playing such a conservative style of defense and playing it poorly. It was like watching bad Iowa. And it was just a total mind, can't say it on the podcast. It was really messing with my head, right, to watch them do this and die a slow death. If you want to play a 14 or 15 possession game against Ohio State,
go ahead.
You're probably going to lose.
Yeah. Yes.
Like don't give CJ Stroud the ball more than 10 times, and he's going to get the ball quite a bit, even if they give up some scores.
Yeah, don't go up tempo against the more talented team. You're just going to give the more talented team more opportunities to score touchdowns.
Like Chip, you mentioned their draw from the West. The good news is they get Wisconsin and Iowa at home. But the bad news is, based on what I saw from that defense last year, Wisconsin and Iowa are the kind of teams I think could cause them problems.
Should be very interesting.